It goes without saying that the Chevrolet Traverse for this generation is a head turner. It draws a lot of attention, especially if you go with the Z71 or RS. But what isn't commonly known is just how great of a value the Chevrolet Traverse really is on the lower end with the LT. In today's video, we're going to check out what the LT has to offer us for an SUV coming in below $50,000. We're going to check out the exterior, the interior, take it out for a quick test drive, and see why the Chevrolet Traverse LT might be not only the best crossover in its market, but might be the best choice in the Chevrolet lineup. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Copeland Chevrolet here in Hudson, Massachusetts for letting me come down here to check out the Chevrolet Traverse once again. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Chevrolet inventory. Now, before we begin, there is a lot to digest here for the 2026 Chevrolet Traverse LT. And typically, I wouldn't be so excited about a base model, but this vehicle right here comes very well equipped and also isn't going to break the bank. So as you begin with pricing, you're looking at a starting cost of just over $44,500 if you go with all-wheel drive. Front-wheel drive is available for this model, but I think for a lot of you looking for some year-round capability and versatility, and if you live in colder regions of the US like I do, going with all-wheel drive will make the most sense. Now, for those of you looking for an off-road experience, go with the Z71 for the off-road tuned suspension, all-terrain tires, and better ground clearance. But what makes the LT, in my opinion, the go-to for 2026, not only is this going to be the practicality and the interior space, but it's the creature comforts, amenities, and more importantly, optional packages and features that makes this one heck of a value at around $50,000. But before we talk about all of that, let's discuss what's under the hood. Powering the three-row crossover is going to be a 2.5-liter turbocharged four-cylinder engine, producing 328 horsepower and 326 pound-feet of torque. It is paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission, and we have all-wheel drive for better year-round capability and versatility. I would say though, don't let these numbers fool you when it comes to performance, because this is still not going to be the fastest crossover out there, and I do think that this vehicle sometimes feels underpowered. But I think more importantly though, for a lot of you, is going to be that fuel economy. You're looking at right around 20 miles per gallon in the city and 24 miles per gallon on the highway, which isn't the best in this market, but if you're looking for a vehicle that is going to be practical, that's where I think the Traverse is most certainly going to surprise. Now, before we check out the exterior for the 2026 Chevrolet Traverse LT, let's take a look at the cargo area, because this is where I think a lot of you are going to be excited. Now, with the LT, you are going to have a power lift gate, and inside behind the third row seats, you're looking at right on 23 cubic feet of room. Now, you guys know I love seeing more than 20 cubic feet behind the third row so I can store all my camera gear with no issues. I have 3 bags of camera gear back here, a gimbal box, and my tripod is over here. So I can store everything with no problem. And if you are going on a road trip with the family or maybe doing a grocery run, you can have your groceries back here and have your kids in the third row, more importantly. Now, also beneath the floor mat, you are going to find an additional cubby for some smaller items, maybe even a bag or two. And there is enough room where you could probably have like a laptop or other tech gadgets you don't want people seeing and possibly stealing if you leave this vehicle unattended for a while. Now, with the third row seats folded, you're looking at right on 56.5 cubic feet of room, which is pretty impressive for a vehicle in this market. But I think it really boils down to when the second row seats are folded. You're looking at just over 97.5 cubic feet of room, which is really impressive for a vehicle that's not a body-on-frame SUV. So if practicality is what you're really looking for, if the performance isn't what's really going to draw you into this vehicle, it's going to be the practicality that will have you staying and coming back for more for this generation. Now, transitioning to the exterior here, the first thing I want to take note of is the fact that with this generation for the Traverse, very aggressive body lines and somewhat of a body-on-frame look. From far away, it kind of looks like a Chevrolet Silverado or maybe even a baby Tahoe. But with the LT though, you're still going to get somewhat of an upscale appearance here with full LED headlights and LED daytime running lights. The big difference though is a lot of chrome accents up front for that grille. As you can tell, underneath those daytime running lights makes its way into the front fascia and of course the Chevrolet emblem, and you're going to notice that on the grille too. For the lower portion of the front bumper, you're going to have some cladding here. So obviously with this being an LT, it's not going to have a full paint finish. That's not too much of a surprise here for this vehicle, but I still think that compared to last generation, this looks a bit more aggressive and also not as passive or as soft. So really good job here from Chevrolet. Now, as you make your way over to the side profile, one thing I want to show you guys here is the cladding once again for the wheel arches. So you'll be able to take on some light off-roading if you so desire with this trim. But you are going to have 18-inch alloy wheels. This does come standard, but there are options where you can go with 20s for this model. So if you're looking for a quieter experience and a softer experience when you are traveling on the highway or for your weekday commutes, the 18s will most certainly be optimal. Now, interestingly enough, though, for this vehicle, you are going to have gloss black side mirror caps with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety, and then you have the chrome accents once again outlining the top portion of the window and making its way to the final third of this model. You're also going to have some roof rails as well, giving you some substance to this vehicle. Then as you make your way around to the back here, what I absolutely love is the taillight design in that X shape. Looks really nice. Now you have gloss black trim outlining those taillights, giving you somewhat of a two-tone look, and that gloss black trim will make its presence known in the center portion of that liftgate. For the lower portion of the rear bumper, that is right, quad exhaust outlets, giving you that sportier appearance to this generation. You're also going to have some contrasting accents for the rear diffuser. Very nice. I'm glad that Chevrolet didn't just put on some cladding here like a lot of manufacturers in this market. Now you can tow with the LT. You are going to have a towing capacity of 5,000 pounds. So if you are going on a weekend getaway, you can tow a small boat or possibly even a small RV. So a lot of flexibility here with this model. Hopping inside the Chevrolet Traverse LT we have today, we have one option that I think is a must-have. It's the $1,000 EvoTex upholstery for the seats found throughout the interior. And this one option alone, this one package, changes up the entire driving experience and ownership experience for this model, because a base LT, as expected, does come equipped with cloth seats. But with the EvoTex upholstery, it does feel a bit more premium. Now, the driver's side does have power adjustability, whereas the passenger will have to manually find their ideal seating position, which isn't too much of a surprise here with this being an LT. Now, when it comes to bolstering and support, it's not going to be super aggressive here, so on those winding back roads, you'll be swinging around quite a bit here. But when it comes to cushioning and the plushness of these seats, that's where Chevrolet has done a fantastic job. On those longer road trips, on those weekday commutes, you're going to find yourself very comfortable being behind the wheel of this model. Now, as you take a look at the dashboard and everything else that's in front of you, you're going to notice two large screens here for your full digital gauge cluster infotainment system, but there are physical buttons found throughout on the dashboard, both for the center console and then on the left side, which we'll get into in a minute. In front of you will be a heated wrap steering wheel, which feels really nice in the hands. No aggressive 10 and 2 or firm 9 and 3 grips, but this isn't going to be a sports crossover, so I'm not surprised by that at all. Now, there will be buttons on the steering wheel to help you control that full digital gauge cluster in front of you. It is not going to be super in-depth or intuitive, but you can change up the layouts to your liking. For me personally, I would go with the Google Map display, so that way I'm looking at the digital gauge cluster rather than looking at the infotainment system. Now, speaking of the infotainment system though, and this is great to see for a base model, you're going to have a 17.7-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility to go along with onboard navigation. We also have the Google built-in software here, giving us Google Assistant and Google Play Store. Now, on the home screen, you can have all your widgets in place, well within arm's reach for your vehicle status, My Chevrolet, camera, trailering, settings, climate, Wi-Fi hotspot, audio. It is all right here. And also very responsive too, which is great to see. At the bottom of the screen will be quick access icons for your dual zone climate control up front, your AC, front and rear defrosters, fan speed, and fan direction. Also, your two double heated seats. Now, before we get to the top of the screen, there's going to be two more icons here. One for your lane centering, but then also for your exterior lighting. If you remember older Chevrolet products, that exterior lighting tab was found kind of embedded on the screen. So I'm glad to see it's right within arm's reach and in the line of sight. And then returning to the top of the screen will be more quick access icons for your home screen, but then also a layout for your Google Maps, and then you can add some content here and customize it to your liking. Next, that will be your more vehicle settings here for your dome light, power window lockout, camera, traction control, auto high beam, and park assist. All this is right here within arm's reach. Next, that will be your music, obviously, whether you want to listen to Sirius XM or maybe even just your music that you have plugged in when it comes to your smartphone. Also, you have your Google Map display here, and then lastly will be for your Bluetooth connectivity. Now, before we continue on and check out the rear backup camera here, let's go over the buttons that are going to be found on the center console and on the dashboard. So beneath the head unit, you are going to find some buttons here for your fan speed, also your front and rear defrosters, and there'll be dials for your dual zone climate control. So some dual functionality there when it comes to your climate. On the left side, though, is going to be a row of buttons for your park assist features, but then you have a drive mode selector. And surprisingly enough, with the LT, you are going to have normal, sport, off-road, snow and ice, tow and haul. And you know, you're probably not going to go off-road here with this trim since you have the Z71, but it's at least there since we have four-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive, I should say. And we also have your auto start-stop button there. Now, when you do place the Traverse in reverse, you are going to receive a rear backup camera with trajectory and also a trailer hitch cam as well. So when you are towing something here, since you do have 5,000 pounds of towing capacity, you can do so very safely and seamlessly. Now, continuing on, beneath the button layout and the infotainment system, you are going to find a wireless phone charging pad here. Very cool to see. A USB-C and USB-A outlet, also a 12-volt outlet as well. Then for the center console itself, you're going to find your two cup holders here, a lot of gloss black trim. Interestingly enough, no gear selector. That will be found on the steering wheel with the stock there. Then you are going to find a cubby here for some smaller items, maybe your key fob, your smartphone, wallet, or other tech gadgets. And beneath this floating bridge will be another storage compartment for a bag or two, possibly a laptop or iPad. Then for the standard storage compartment, there is enough room here for, I would say, a couple 17-ounce water bottles. It is that deep. Kind of reminds you what you are going to find out of a body-on-frame SUV. And there will be a tray here for some loose change and other smaller items. Since the only option that we have here today is the EvoTech seats, I can't show you the sunroof package, which would bring in a lot of natural light to the interior. But for this model, there are a number of different options and packages available here, especially when it comes to the safety aspect and then the overall driving experience. But when you start adding up all those price tags, when you start adding up the final price, you might as well go with the Z71 or High Country at that point. But what I like here about the LT is that you can customize it. You can make it somewhat upscale and really mask the fact that the LT is the base trim for 2026. Then for passengers in the second row, first off, we have captain chairs on our model. That is right, captain chairs are available for the LT. You can go with bench seats if you so desire to maximize the occupancy for this vehicle, but also to squeeze in the third person in the center. But with the captain chairs, you can relax and recline by about 5 to 10 degrees to maximize that headroom, but also maximize the relaxation inside this vehicle. Now, speaking of headroom, and then also leads me to legroom, there's plenty of that because you have a higher roof line, so taller passengers will not be hitting their head on the headliner. But legroom wise, you're looking at right on 41.5 inches of legroom, which is close to being class leading. Falls just a bit short compared to the new Hyundai Palisade. Now, you can easily have smaller kids back here comfortably. You can also have tall passengers as well. Gives you a lot of flexibility in more ways than one. Also, you can slide these seats both forwards and backwards to maximize that legroom for the second and third rows. For me though, and I'm really surprised by this, in fact, the Chevrolet Traverse LT has really impressed me in more ways than one, is that you are going to have climate control back here. That is great to see. So on a colder or warmer day, you can be nice and comfortable. Now, no heated outboard seats. That is available on higher trims, so I'm not too surprised or disappointed to not have that feature here for this model. You're also going to have two USB-C inputs, no three-pronged outlet. That will also be found on higher trims. You're also going to have two cup holders here as well. And then no surprise, no rear sunshades to block out the haters. But again, this is an LT trim after all. And then lastly, for the third row, passengers looking at right on 32 inches of legroom, which again is going to be near the top in this market. So if you're looking for a family-friendly SUV, a practical SUV more importantly, that's where the Chevrolet Traverse is going to impress and also meet your demands and maybe even exceed your expectations. Also, if you have average size adults sitting back here, they're not going to be cramped or claustrophobic, and also headroom really isn't that bad either, and there are vents here, so that way they can stay nice and warm or cool throughout the year. Also back here, you will have cup holders on both sides of the third row, and there will be a USB-C outlet, so that way you can charge up your smartphones or tablets. Despite my reservations towards this powertrain, because I feel like it's underpowered and doesn't have the same grunt and muscle as a naturally aspirated V6 or other turbocharged four-cylinder engines in this market, I am genuinely impressed with the LT. I'm impressed with the fit and finish, I'm impressed with the ride quality, and I'm also impressed with the refinement. We already knew first and foremost that this generation was going to be so much better than its predecessor. You see that with the design, you see that with the interior space and overall practicality. But the way in which this SUV drives on the road, the way it glides, This is really impressive, especially for a base trim. Now, I know some of you are going to be saying, Mike, you would not be saying this if you didn't have the Evo-Tex upholstery. If you had the cloth seats, you would say, oh, it just kind of feels like a base model or a rental crossover. And maybe that's true, but the Evo-Tex upholstery is a must-have, especially for only $1,000. That gives you so much more quality and comfort to these seats and really helps out with the overall driving experience. Now, with the LT and really for the Traverse in general, this is not going to be a sporty crossover. This is not going to be something that you'll be writing home about. But for a family hauler and a grocery getter, this checks off all those boxes. And when you take a look at its size now, and the fact that you can have average size adults in the second row, and maybe even the third row as well, you know, that gives this model a lot of flexibility and also makes it extremely competitive against its rivals at around $50,000. Now, at highway speeds at around 65 miles an hour, interior insulation is pretty good. Now, we are sitting on 18s, and you can go higher with 20s if you go with the sunroof package. But with the 18s, this is actually a really comfortable driving experience. Now, like I said before, this Turbo 4 doesn't really have that grunt and muscle that some crossovers in this market are going to exhibit. And it does take a bit to get up to speed. Now, that is to be expected with a Turbo 4, but still. But for long road trips and even some weekend getaways, I think all of you are going to be happy in this vehicle. The fact that it feels so isolating does mean a lot. But it comes down to the materials that Chevrolet used, even for their base model, the wrapped steering wheel, these seats. It really just helps out and enhances the driving experience, which would otherwise not be remarkable in this class. Now, one thing I think a lot of you are going to like here is the turning radius of this SUV. Considering its size and its weight, it can get out of its own way. It's not going to be agile or athletic on a winding back road, but when you're cruising around in the city and suburbs, you can definitely maneuver this vehicle around. But ultimately here with the LT, because again, this is the base trim, it is going to impress you in more ways than one. You might be buying this vehicle for its practicality, but you're going to stay for the interior quality. You might even stay for the technology. And I think for this particular trim, you're also going to stay for the value. Sure, we don't have the most well-equipped LT today, no sunroof package, but when you're looking at its price tag, when you're looking at what this goes up against when in regards to its rivals, I think it's doing a really good job here. I definitely like this more than the Z71 I had featured a couple of months ago. I just think that for a vehicle in low end, you're getting a lot here. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick review for the 2026 Chevrolet Traverse LT. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys next time.